again at 900 hours on Monday, August 12th. This is titled Racism. The lies that we tell and the lies that's been told and the lies that's been controlled. I want to talk about racism in a different way today. I want to talk about the racism that we do. Yes, that we do. And if we can classify these words, so I'm going to reach into the terminology bag because we have used them. They're not overly used words. I think these words are good words to use, but I'm going to do it in a reverse way. We heard of reverse racism, but have we ever heard of reverse colorism? Didn't think about that, did you? Reverse colorism, huh? Okay, we talked about. To me, we're going to say racism. Racism come from people that, quote unquote, have a power or a stand where they can actually influence and semi-control outcomes of one specific color, which is race, on how things is working. And now you add reverse, that means that race is now hating themselves. So now reverse colorism, which is, let's go into racism. Racism is a root. The root it comes from is envy. So let's say envy is the seed and hate is the shell. We planted envy into the world. What are some envies? Hate people because of their, one envy you're going to just stick on is hate the person because of their skin color. Okay? Now when they put it in the soil, what is soil? Soil is the ground. So when we stand up, we are standing on our feet. And what is our feet planted on? The ground. So we all will touch the ground eventually, right? All right. First, we are coming out of the womb. So even when the man places seed into soil, which is the womb, and a baby is being formed and created, that's the soil, right? The seed and the baby is the shell. So the baby is everything that's coming from that seed. That's why when a baby is birthed through the womb, out the uterus, the baby have now taken on 9 months of whatever the mother and father is and said. That's what became of the baby. Literally, the seed came from the man. The woman had the soil. The shell was the baby, and the baby finally came out. The shell was kind of the womb with the soil, and the baby was what came out. And if we say the baby, whatever the baby is, that was the seed, because the shell breaks open, which is the womb. The womb finally opens up and say, here's the baby. So if you take that in the forms of a plant, now whatever is formed. So for a person, a being to be born, the baby is the seed, and it comes out. But if it's a plant, whatever flower is going to be. So if it was a rose, a lily, whatever flower, a camille. So now there's the child. The child is born. So that flower was sitting there. And the flower eventually has to grow roots. Now, there's envy, which is the seed. And hate was the shell. And the shell broke open. When the shell broke open, it broke off into the soil. And whatever it was, that's what it became. So whatever that nurtured that baby through that, whatever food was being fed through that baby, that's what became of the baby. But the features now, this is the stems of hatred and envy. It became racism. Racism is one of the stems. And then once one of the stems came off, if you depict it by now the flower family is only one flower. So if I plant, or let's say it was an apple tree. Let's say it was a tree. If I plant an apple tree, apples are going to come out. Oranges on it. If I plant an orange tree, oranges are going to come out. So when the sounds of this, now we are all apples. Those, they got the apple, you got the bananas, you got the grapes. The other races are the bananas. We are the apple. Just say we're the apple. The other races are the grapes, the bananas. They grow in the other areas. Now, what we have done in racism, we took on their form. You're an apple, but then you're saying you don't want to see an apple no more and don't want to be an apple because apples don't taste good to you no more. Sneeze me. Trying to get rid of that word. I say that, people look at me weird, and I tell them I don't say the word be less. I don't say that. Be less. Think about that. And so now we have taken on racism for our own race. And what usually comes from that? Usually the mother or father is not in the homes. The mother or father use drugs. That child is used to being hurt by their mother and father, or a person that's supposed to love them or nurture and take care of them. And now that person builds up as what those other people did, but they have no reason at all. They never even interacted. And some people never interacted with everyone, but we build up the hatred that becomes racism towards each other. Because we look at the skin and we act as we don't supposed to have pride. We hold pride in that. Those people hold. So if you ever talk to the Chinese, the Middle Eastern, we just say that they got so much pride. They do. But even though that one Middle Eastern man hurt that in Middle Eastern woman, that woman don't say they don't treat it that way. If we gonna do any type of saying they come from that apple treat every apple as apple. They literally just say that's a bad apple. They throw that apple away and don't worry about that apple. No, we pick all the apples. That's why I use apples. We pick all the apples in one bunch and said, well, if that's one bad apple, he was near that apple, so he must be bad. And that's how we do it. We're the only race that does that. So we took on their racism, and why I call it the reverse racism and reverse colorism. Well, after you got the root of racism, you got the colorism, and then you have the hatred for your it depends on which direction it's taken. Now, if that apple is nurtured correctly, that apple can make it past that. I can see past other colors of women. So if I was going to say, I talk in general women. A lot of women in general act a little crazy, and I don't care what race they are. They have their way about them that make them ugly. That's not so attractive. Sorry, that's all women. But if I'm going to single out women, yes, Puerto Rican women that I see more and more when I'm around do this. Middle Eastern women do this. Chinese women do this. African descendant women do this. But I'm around mainly, more around all the race of women. But before I grew up, my mother showed me a good example. And if she didn't, I seen over another one. I said in my recording, I never felt that love. Nobody watered on me besides my mother and sister and my family. That's real life. And I can back that up and say it never happened. That's how. But I look at it as this. If one person did it, I think that's a good example. But one person never done it. No woman of the same race have ever cleansed me. Cleansed me as in show me this is love. I see you working hard towards me. Now let me show you. But just because I wasn't attractive to her, or I may not been her same religion or belief structure, she couldn't and she didn't show me love. She didn't come in with her nurturing, her womanness, and say, I want to show him. I don't get that. I want to show him. Because if it did, I would be in a different situation. I can talk about my mother. I know what love felt like, because I love myself. But what we have done is going over the time again. I'm going to come back. Say la.